Awesome. Hi, I see everyone's coming on. Whoops, I'm just inviting.
Yeah. Hi, Dave. I am Kulindeco. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. So we're just waiting for Faraaz to join us. Let's see if he's coming on. Let's come. So we've invited Faraaz. I think it's just busy loading. So hi, Nan. So while we wait for Faraaz to join us, we've just started like a minute early. Well, it's 6 o'clock right now. Hi, Nani, it's nice to see you as well. So we're just waiting for Faraaz to join us and then we'll begin. Let's just, there we go. Go live. I think we're having some technical issues. So we're just waiting for Faraaz to join us. If we do, we actually tested this out yesterday.
Oh, there. Hello. Took a while.
I hit request a couple of times. It wasn't coming through.
Well, maybe you should join Instagram and see what to do with this software. Maybe it's a software issue or a bug.
I don't know.
Okay, awesome. Sorry?
Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you clearly.
Awesome.
So that's great. And I see it's already 6 o'clock. So, and there's a few people that have joined us. Hi, Munib. I see Munib is here as well. Tommy is here. We'll just give it one more minute and then just for people to join us and then we can begin. So, are you working from home? How's work?
Yeah, working from home. It's crazy now. Now we've passed the year mark of working from home, and I think it's had its ups and downs, I would say. So the ups of, I think from my point of view, my productivity is shot through the roof. But from the social aspect, that's the sad part. Now we just in meetings, that's the only times that we see each other's faces, and there's no chat at the coffee. There's that kind of part that's a bit sad. But I think the main thing that we have to just say is we need to be just grateful and thankful that we still have a job in this time. We still can earn a living.
That is very true. It is actually quite sad what's happening at the moment as well. People from all spheres have been impacted by the pandemic. But on that somber note, let's start. Okay, so I see people will be joining, and hi everyone. It's so nice to have you on here. Faraaz, I have with me Faraaz. He's a software development manager. I'm not going to go into what that means because he will do that for us. So I know I'm quite excited to have you on, and I know that there are quite a few people that have sent through questions as well, which I'll ask you towards the end. And but before that, why don't you give us a little introduction? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Cool. Yep. My name is Faraaz. I've been in the software industry for I think just over 8 years now. It's approaching 8.5 years. I started out, as a junior dev. I've gone through kind of the ranks over there, but I still deal with software development on a day-to-day basis. I studied at UCT, did a Bachelor of Science, Computer Science at UCT. Started over there, and my passion for software development started at a really a young age. I think it was really in high school maybe before that, in junior school, that I started having this passion for software development, and it stems from my father. My father was also in the industry, and I think if I just recall, like way back when, as a kid, people always ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always say to myself, I want to be a games developer. I always play this game. Like, I just want to make that tweak over here. I just want to change this thing over here. And yeah, from that, I ended up in the software industry. And it's been a hell of a ride since then.
Awesome. So you're one of those lucky ones that actually know what you want to do from a young age already. But cool. Thanks so much for that intro. So I think let's get right into it. So tell us, how did you actually go into software development? What route did you take to in terms of studies?
So for myself, like I said, like I had the influence of my father, who was in the industry beforehand. I actually was fortunate enough to take it in high school. So I took computer science in high school. I carried that on to university. So I did like the 3-year degree. Interesting enough, I wasn't actually planning on doing a degree in computer science. It kind of shifted into that. So in my first year, I had like the mix of, accounting, computer science, mathematics, statistics, and like going through all those subjects, I decided, you know what, computer science is actually where it's at for me, and that's where I kind of ended up over there. Fortunately got through my degree. And I started out in a company that specialized in payment solutions. Worked over there for a couple of years, and then I moved across to another company that specializes in business automation. So yeah, I took like the quite a structured route to kind of get there. Going through high school, going through university, going through all that kind of steps. But I know that a lot of other people, come from different avenues to enter the field. A lot of people unfortunately don't have that exposure at the high school level. Maybe the first time they is university. Quite often we also get some people that don't even see it through university. They may just explore in that that field and that industry, play it on in their side time, outside of their degree. So yeah, for myself, pretty structured in there, but I know a lot of people come into the industry from all sorts of like avenues and stuff.
Okay, so you say so basically saying that there's more than one route to take if you want to go into. Are you talking about specifically the IT industry, not necessarily software development?
Yeah, so software development, I would say, is massively flexible. Now, I think the beauty that we have at the moment is that kids can be exposed to developing software at a really young age. You can start, junior school if you'd like. The systems that we have in place out there, and there's a lot of free tooling that allow for easy, drag and drop, plug and play kind of software development. So we can start nurturing kids from a very young age, like showing them and exposing them to the field. So, you don't necessarily have to go down the path that I went, of doing it in high school, of doing a degree. Some people prefer, if they don't want to go to university, some might do courses, etc. Some might do, certificates. But because the industry is so open, you can start with anything. I mean, it's just a simple matter of like Googling and finding from there.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so your route, you basically took a very structured route where you studied it at university, and so now you say that there are other ways of doing that, and like okay, you mentioned Googling being one of them. So what other sort of methods or routes would people go if they want to actually learn more about software development to actually get a job? Not necessarily for their own interest, but to be considered for a role or a job in the software development industry.
One of the avenues that I quite looking at, especially still today, whenever I want to learn something, whenever there's something that I don't know, aside from Googling, is YouTube. what's awesome is that there are so many courses actually on YouTube as well that will have like step-by-step tutorials from, setting up your whole environment to, showing you a bit about, oh, here's this programming language. Or even if you don't want to be in programming specifically, there are other kind of fields within the IT industry, right? So because the industry is so wide, we can, you can come in from, let's just say a developer point of view, you can come in from a tester point of view. If you want to be involved with quality assurance, you want to make sure that, the software that the developers produce is of a high quality from a testing point of view before it goes out. You can get involved from a requirements point of view, from a customer interaction point of view. There's so many different touch points that it's not kind of just specific to just developing software. So that is the awesome part. It's so wide.
Okay, awesome. And I actually just I think it's Munib that just made a comment there. It says that, well, he says it's an unpopular opinion that you could even read books, and that there are actually quite a few really great books that you could read out there that could teach you all of these things as well.
100%. There are a lot of books out there. I would say finding the right one, it might be a bit tricky. It depends on where you kind of want to start. If you're after a specific language that you want to learn, or if you just want to learn, software concepts. I don't know any names offhand. I know I have read some books in the day, but I don't remember the titles offhand. But yeah, books are there.
Awesome. And then maybe, Munib, at the end of this talk, you could perhaps send me a DM, and you can perhaps suggest some of those books that we can then post in this Insta Live chat, because it is being recorded and it will be uploaded later on. I see that Kate is also here. She's a recruiter, a recruitment guru actually, and she says LinkedIn also has a lot of free learning paths as well, which is also another avenue, and a lot of people are starting to look at that now. I know it's relatively newish, so I'm not sure how familiar people are with some of the courses that they have, but that is also another avenue that people could use. Great. So yeah.
Yeah, so there are like, sites out there that offer courses, and, one of the popular ones is like Udemy, for example. They have a lot of courses on there, and, from a wide selection of languages and, the different concepts, they've got a wide array of there. But obviously those are, pay to learn kind of tutorials, whereas I would say YouTube and just finding some articles, that's like your free way to get into it. So you don't have to spend anything to get into it over there. From like a very grassroots level kind of learning, there's a couple of sites that I found that offer very easy coding practice, and one of them is code.org, which offers a drag and drop kind of build a solution where you could put like puzzle pieces together to help you design like a software. So Code.org is one of them that I saw. I've seen something from MIT called Scratch. I think it's scratch.mit.edu. So that's the similar concept. Now, that's more for your people that, you haven't been exposed to coding at all. You kind of just want to see at the, very high level, what is it all about? And it's basically about, putting together a set of instructions. This is software development, putting together a set of instructions that can provide a solution that satisfies, a certain requirement. That's the base of software engineering and software development. Someone out there, some client out there, or it could even be yourself, will encounter some kind of problem or some kind of gap that you do in the industry, and we're going to use software to build out that solution. If you think of all the tools that we use today, the Instagram, the Facebook, the Uber, all of these are gaps that people have identified in the industry and solved through writing software. So
Awesome. So you basically just answered one of my questions. I was going to ask you, what is software development actually? So you're saying it's basically an answer, a solution provided to any kind of problem, and using software, and that includes apps as well, obviously. Like, so do you build apps? Do you create apps? Can you do that as a software developer?
100%. So I mean, I've built a couple of apps. I think 2 or 3 of them are still on the Android Play Store at the moment. It's like some simple apps. One of them has, I think, 60 or 70,000 downloads so far. So that one like took off. So, and that's one of the things that like I did like on the side while I was working. And that, when I look at it, I really wish that, while I was in high school, while I was at the university, I wish I spent more time looking at those kind of things. Because the beauty is, before you even get into the working world, you can start making money already just by writing apps. Now, to develop app, there are so many tutorials out there. It's free. It's free to develop that app. The only time that you pay is when you want to actually release it to the Play Store. And if I recall correctly, that is I think it's $10 a lifetime for a lifetime license. So you pay the $10. Yeah, then you can publish as many apps as you'd like to the store with either paid for apps or apps that are free that you can include adverts. And through all of that, you can earn some revenue, even as a child, even as a student. You can go down that path. So that's something that I encourage people to go down.
That's awesome. And your app that you developed that has about 70,000 downloads, what is it about? Was it a gaming app?
It was a very simple game. It was a would you rather. It's a would you rather game for kids. There were so many of the apps out there, but for myself, I just wanted to see what it's like app development is all about. I built a couple of apps in the past, but I've never published them. And then that was one of the first apps that I actually put in the store. And I don't know, it took off. It was pretty awesome. It was just like a simple game of, would you rather, eat ice cream or eat a bag of chips? Something simple like that. And yeah, it took off quite well.
That's really awesome. That's so cool. I didn't know you did that. That's quite impressive. And my question then is, so yes, so you said, like, you mentioned software developer and software engineering. So I know that that's actually the same thing, like the term is used interchangeably, correct?
Correct. It really depends on who you're talking to, which company you're talking to. They really use it interchangeably. Software engineer, software developer, programmer, it's all the same thing. I think most people tend towards software engineer, but it's just semantic.
Okay, cool. So it's basically just names for the same thing. So that's also interesting, and especially I just sort of wanted to point that out because I know there are quite a few students also that would listen to this talk, and it can be quite confusing for them as well when they're sort of starting to look for a job, not necessarily knowing what the difference is, seeing these different names as well. So that's quite cool, and it's really quite cool to see what can be done through software development. I mean, I think also even my own website is built by a software developer as well. Like, is that like a specific niche software developer, or could you also build a website?
Yeah, I can build a website. The cool part is that I would say software developers are kind of split into 3 categories in a sense. So I'm talking specifically about people that are coding, that are actually writing the software. You either will on the front end side of things. So that is the people that would design websites, would add your pretty images, your pretty colors, design the whole layout. When you go to Google, when you go to Facebook, and you are greeted with the colors that you see on the screen and how it's laid out, a front end developer was responsible for that. Then you get someone who they call a back-end developer. Now that is not really displayed to a user. You wouldn't see that on a website, but that's where a lot of your logic sits behind. That's where your databases and information is stored. Now, those two can't most live applications out there, both of them would interplay with each other. A front-end website can't display any information without the back-end, databases and all the APIs and everything that it exposes. So they kind of work hand to hand. Then you get the third type of developer, which does both. Then they call that a full stack developer or full stack engineer. It has a couple of other terms, but that's the most common one. So that is the three typical, jobs or job titles that you'd see in the industry if you're looking for a job. Front-end software engineer, back-end software engineer, or full stack. Those are the common terms. And quite often they would put in, the type of language that they're looking for. So they'd say Java back-end developer, or they'll say Vue.js or Angular front-end developer. So those are just the terminology that they'll use.
Okay, awesome. So talking about languages, I'd actually want to know a little bit more about software, or programming languages as well. And I actually had a question from one of my followers, and she was asking, she said, well, firstly, before I ask that question, I want to know, there are so many languages out there, and how, if you could choose 2 or 3 kind of languages that you think would be important, which languages would you choose?
Cool. I'll get there. I just saw a comment quickly that Manib raised about embedded programmers, and that is true as well. You get some software developers that will work on a bit more low level, that will work on the hardware itself. So those are the people that will interface with circuit boards, for example. That is a bit more low level language. Now, I don't mean low level in the sense of like a quality. It's just different levels that the code will interface. So typically, the high level that we see is software that we basically run on the computer. There are some software that's a bit more, low level, that's going to speak to an actual hardware device. You could think of examples like, a card machine that you go to the shop and someone swipes or inserts their card at. Someone has to write the software that sits on that machine and understands, the card that you're putting in, etc., etc. So there is that split as well. Then in terms of, you spoke about languages. Now, the awesome and sucky part about languages is that there seems to be a new one cropping up every single day. I use the term lightly, every single day, but quite often all of a sudden you see that there's this new language that maybe solves a problem in a different way, maybe behaves in a different way, and that sometimes makes it tricky, because do you, as a software engineer, a developer, do you decide to learn that language? Do you decide to stick with the language that majority of the people out there use? It's a very difficult question. Now, because there are so many languages out there, my recommendation for you as you're starting out is to not specialize in one language yet. It's to rather kind of be a jack of all trades. So be open to learning new languages. The common ones out there that people generally start off with is JavaScript, Python, Java, and C#. Those are like the common languages that people usually start out with. And my advice would be to try to go through all those languages, see if they interest you, try to learn a bit about it, but don't specialize in any of them just yet. And the reason I say it is you don't want to lock yourself down to a specific language, because that alienates you from looking at a job that maybe uses something else. Now, over time, as you get more experience, you tend to favor, 1 or 2 or 3 different languages, and that's normal. So that's fine. As you get a bit more experience, it's fine at that point to decide, okay, these are the languages that I like. These are the ones, let's say Java is commonly used out there. So let me stick with that one, because I know I'm comfortable with it. There are many jobs out there for it. So I'm going to specialize in that. become highly skilled in it. But at the same time, I'm still going to look at other languages to make sure my portfolio of skills is always rounded out. But yeah, there are something to choose from. JavaScript, Python, Java, C#. Those are the common ones that I would go for. It's the ones that you'd find a job easily for as well.
Okay, and I have to tell you that so I've seen a few questions come up, and I will definitely address them. So I'm actually going to sort of bypass my questions and start answering some of the questions on the chat. And the one thing that, firstly, the one question that sort of came up, and it's also around languages as well. So I saw Caitlin ask that, and Rosanna also asked that. So I know that you said that you shouldn't specialize in one specific language, that you should be looking at multiple and sort of try it out and see what you like, etc. But if you're completely new to this and you don't actually have a background in IT or software development, etc., what would be your recommendation? What is a good sort of entry level, if there's something like an entry level language that people could start looking at if they are interested?
I would say entry level, like you've never looked at code before, and this is like the first time that you want to try looking at code, JavaScript and Python. Now, I'm suggesting JavaScript and Python. Now, just quickly, JavaScript, even though it has Java in the name, it's unrelated to Java. So I would say JavaScript and Python as the starting languages, just because, let's just say from Python point of view, the syntax, how you write the software is very simple, very straightforward, and you can accomplish a lot in a few lines of code. When you kind of pick up some skills and you want to start bridging out beyond that, languages like Java and C# are much more structured and add a bit more structure to how you write the code. Now, with the languages, there was one thing to note in that, some languages are tailored towards, and I mentioned front-end versus back-end. Some languages are tailored towards front-end development, and some languages are tailored towards back-end development. Now, JavaScript, that's tailored, that's purely front-end development that you're mainly going to run with there. There are toolings and libraries that leverage JavaScript to run on the back-end, right? But the majority of the work out there in JavaScript is going to be front-end development, and then back-end, when you I was talking about logic, you want to do your business logic, your data processing, your interacting with a DB, for example. That is going to be your languages like Java and C# and C++ and C, like all those languages out there. So there is that split. Now, when you build a website, right? You're going to have to write some of it in front-end language, right? So you have to pick a front-end language, and then the data part of it, you'd have to write in the back-end language. So if you're building a website, you have that whole flavor out there. Now, when I recommended learning like a mix of them to not specialize, when I say a mix, it's like one or two. At the very start, one or two from a front end and one or two from a back end. You want to kind of get towards being that full stack developer rather than, just specialized in front end or just specialized in back end.
Okay. And that sort of leads into my next question as well from our followers is, so what sort of platforms are best, in your opinion, for learning new languages? So I know you mentioned YouTube and you enjoy YouTube. We also mentioned Udemy, and I mean even like UCT offers part-time courses. So in your opinion, sort of which platforms would be best for learning new languages?
I would say it depends on your aptitude for how much you kind of want to spend. A lot of the courses out there has unfortunately a cost associated to it. If you can do a course for UCT, there's a cost. through Udemy or there's a couple of other websites out there. There's a cost associated courses, another one of those websites. YouTube is obviously free. Now, because there's a cost associated, it doesn't mean that it's bad. It means that it's usually very structured, it's very informative, and it has a typically like a good feedback built into those courses where they give you all the materials and the learning. So that's the benefits of going down the course route. They give you a lot of material. Go to the YouTube, because it's a YouTube tutorial, you kind of just whatever that person that you're following kind of suggests, that's what you're kind of taking it at. Whether they give you kind of course material or anything like that, that's completely up to the YouTuber. For myself, I typically just YouTubed. That's worked really well for me. I don't think I've done any other like paid for courses outside of obviously the Christian education, my degree. I've majority just used YouTube or Google to find the answer. There are a couple of websites out there that are tailored. I say a couple, there are a lot that are tailored with like an answer, question answer kind of scenario where you can search for what it is that you're looking for, and there'll be an answer that can provide a solution. But that's obviously not a structured course. A structured course, you're better off with a YouTube tutorial or a paid for course. It's completely up to your appetite for spending.
Okay, and then from a job perspective, from a job market perspective, are there some institutions or like places where one would then choose, would companies then sort of see them as, if people are coming from a tertiary or university environment, that they will maybe be given preference over other people that have maybe been self-taught? How does it work?
So it's really a mix. I would say that companies do tend to favor students that have that tertiary education. Just because there are a lot of people that come from that kind of background, so that is typically the first prize as a candidate. Where someone that doesn't have that education, doesn't have that tertiary education, if they can prove through job experience by projects that they've done, through some freelancing code that they've done, through kind of app development that they've done, that they've maybe published to the store. If you don't have that tertiary education, there's more focus on your actual CV and what work experience you have. And when I say work experience, like I'm not talking about like a formal work opportunity. I'm talking more about what have you done out there to to freelance at a company, to do some back work. That would be your best bet to get in.
Okay, so it's more around what have you produced, basically.
Yes, correct.
Because like you've mentioned, is that with the nice thing about sort of like IT or software development is the fact that it can be self-taught. And if you can come and produce something and show something, and I'm sure there's a lot of these apps that we all use, and people that have built them aren't necessarily from like a tertiary institution either. So that's cool. I want to ask you a little bit more around the job market, but before I do that, I see there's one or two questions, so let me ask you. So Holmes by Naz, she's asked, what sort of subjects should kids in high school take if they want to either get into the IT industry or if they want to get into software development? Is there like a prerequisite, or what sort of courses or subjects would you recommend would help people that want to get into this field?
Okay. First prize, if the school does offer computer science, then that's obviously a given. If they don't, then I would prioritize maths. Now, a lot of developing software is all about analytical thinking, and if you purely want to be someone who's writing software, you have to be, of that mindset where you can get a problem, critically break it down and think about how to actually solve it. And, a common indicator that someone has, good critical thinking skills is if they in high school, junior school, if they're doing well at maths, physics as well, if they're doing well at those subjects, they usually show quite well for software development. Now, even if you're not necessarily doing well in those subjects, right? There are some people that are more gifted from a creative side, and they're more skilled in being able to choose the right color set, being able to choose the right layout and the right user interface, the right experience for website. Right? Those people not necessarily, don't necessarily have to have the, the best of the best math mark, but they can then focus on front-end development. So, you've got those avenues, like I said, if you are gifted in analytical and you have some creativity, you would do both. You do both front-end and back-end. If you are more focused in, creative and less on the analytical side, you'd focus more on the front-end. And if you're highly analytical, but you don't have a color scheme like Sense at all, then you may want to focus on the back end side. The options are there. But yeah, from a high school point of view, I would recommend focusing on your maths.
Okay, but like you said, like even if you don't get like the top marks for maths, I mean, you can still do front end as well. It's not to say that, this is not for you. You need to find another clear path.
Yeah, 100% correct.
Awesome. Cool. So before I get back to some of my own questions, another question that came through, and this is from one of my followers that's from India. And what he wants to know is, what is the demand for software engineers in South Africa? So in the country we're in, and we're in South Africa. So what is the demand for software engineers in South Africa right now?
I would say it's massive, and it is growing. I would say every month it's growing. Now I've seen some polls and statistics out there, and what the kind of trend that we have is that a lot of companies are shifting towards digital solutions. A lot of companies that like brick and mortar companies are moving more towards the online realm. And what that means is that there's more opportunities for a software developer to be employed by them. Each company nowadays wants their own website. Each company has their own set of data and information that they need to store in an intelligent way in order to get access to that information. Each company, maybe they deal with lots of information and they want to apply some artificial intelligence to that information. So you can see from that majority, the industry itself is kind of exploding over here. I'd say even in, through our COVID times, the demand is still pretty high for software engineers, software developers.
I see there's another question that's come through, and it's from an electrical engineering student at FITS, Talente. And Talente wants to know, so it says software development is charming me. What would you say is the easiest way to master C? Is that C++? Is it C sharp? How do I say that?
No, that's C sharp would be like a C and a hash sign.
There we go. C hash. There we go.
It's a tricky language. I did it at university as well. It unfortunately is challenging, just because it's I would say it's a slightly lower level than your Javas, your C sharps, just because you can deal with memory references, whereas other languages you wouldn't deal with such things. My best bet for you would just be practice. If you are struggling with the language, if you're struggling in your field, it's something that you need to sit with every single day, whether that's doing assignments, whether that's picking a small little problem a small little task and seeing if we can solve it with the language of your choice. That is the best way to become more familiar with the tooling that you're working with. Now,
And
I've seen a lot of people, especially during my first year. My computer science class was massive in my first year, and I saw a lot of people that would not work every day on coding. And I'm talking about the people that they didn't come from a coding background from their high school. That it's the first time that they're looking at computer science, and the people that didn't sit with it every day, that didn't sit holding their skills. Those are the guys that unfortunately dropped out. That when it came to doing all the practicals, doing all the assessments, they struggled. So yeah, you need to unfortunately sit every single day until you get better.
So you're saying it's one of those things that if you really practice it and practice it and practice, the people that are good at it are the people that are actually sitting with it and struggling with it every day.
100%. Like, don't get me wrong, there are some people that are extremely gifted that can, look at the language once, grasp it, understand it, and, build the solutions along the way. But I'd say the average user, average, developer has to sit with it every day. You have to hone your skills. Otherwise there's no hope from you. Even, I would say this, even after you get your job, most jobs, they have this thing where, you're expected to know a certain amount, and there's a lot of on-the-job learning. Now, that will get you so far. In the software industry, because there's a new language every day, because there's constantly improvements and updates to the tooling that you're using. If you don't, continue to, learn in your spare time, continue to improve your skills, there will come a point where, you're going to kind of fall behind and become stagnant, and getting the next job is going to be difficult for you.
Okay, so if you're going into this field, then it's just to know that once you've come out of like a tertiary institution or you've studied, the learning doesn't end there. You need to constantly keep up to date with what's going on in the field if you
100%.
want to be employable.
The learning never stops. And obviously, like, take breaks. Like, you don't have to be, consuming content all the time. But in our field, the learning never stops. And, if you know that and you understand it and you grasp that from an early, onset, then you should have no problems in your career. But if that's something that you neglect, there is going to come a point in time where it's going to bite you.
Okay, so Anita, I hope that answers your question, and good luck with your course, and I hope you pass. So thank you for that, and I do think that, like, you talk about programming languages being like that, something that you sort of need to practice. But I think that even sort of languages in general, if you don't practice it, you can lose it. Like, so speaking a foreign language as well, it's and besides languages, I do think that the way the job market works right now, and the way we are headed, I don't think that you can get away from not sort of learning. Like, you're just not going to progress in your career if you're not open and willing to sort of learn more things, because there's constantly new things happening all the time in every sort of field as well, and if you don't keep up, you will be left behind. So okay, great. So I actually want to also just sort of go back into what it's like in terms of the job market as well, because I know a lot of people are interested in this. So I know you've mentioned that you've been involved in recruiting at both your companies as well. You've recruited developers. So what I'd like to know is, what does the software development interviewing process look like? And what are the characteristics or traits, like what do you actually look for when hiring somebody?
I actually did an interview today and yesterday. We at my company we are hiring aggressively.
Okay.
So most companies nowadays that I can tell is there is normally some kind of automated process to kind of see whether or not, it's worth the company's time to spend on you. And that can be either in the form of a online quiz that you need to do. Maybe there's an online assessment that you need to solve a problem, solve some code. Or there can also be a take-home assignment where they'll give you a requirement. They'll say, here you go, in your own time. Maybe you have a week, maybe you have a couple of days. You go and write up a solution to this problem, and you can submit that to us. So a lot of companies are kind of doing that kind of, starting kind of steps just to weed out the candidates that can, in terms can hack it or not, the candidates that can actually show their skills. Now, in my company as well, we do that. We've got like a completely like automated way where if you want to apply to us, you will self-schedule your own online assessment. You will, do the assessment. You get a certain score that gets emailed to us. We use that to decide whether or not we actually want to contact you. And that's before you even really get your CV. We'll do all this assessment.
Wow.
So, it really depends on the company. Some of them are more lax. Some of them, they'll put you through multiple stage interviews. It really depends. But typically, if you had to, take a step back and look at the high level of these interviews, right? Aside from that online and automated kind of quiz, if you're coming in as a software developer, software engineer, you typically would be expected to do some sort of, technical assessment. They could speak to you face to face and ask you coding questions. What does this thing mean of this language? How does this work? What does this process do? Right? They could give you, some problems and expect you to give it the solution on the spot. Pre-COVID times, they would quite often give you a whiteboard and a marker and say, here's the problem, go write out the solution. Now, and I've gone through that before. It is unfortunately very intimidating, but it's one of those things that, you kind of just have to practice answering, these kind of, questions. And you can Google them. You can Google, if you're applying for a Java job, Java technical interview questions. You're applying for a JavaScript job, JavaScript technical interview questions. So the information is out there. It's just, on the spot, being able to provide all that info. And at the same time, it's more than just your theoretical knowledge. People want to see, companies want to see, how can you apply it? Are you just regurgitating something that you read in a textbook, or do you actually comprehend what it is that you've read about? So that is the whole technical process of the interview. After that, there's usually I would say the fluffy interviews where it's like,
the HR bit.
HR interview where it's like, what is your greatest strengths and your weaknesses? Questions that I'm not too fond of, but those are there are those kind of questions that try to find out what is your character, what is your some of your demeanor, kind of explore your personality from that point of view.
And that's more, that's more like, okay, now we know you can do the job, but are you going to fit in our company? Are we going to get along? So that's sort of where I need to defend my field, but that's sort of where that comes in. But what I do want to say is that I really appreciate that, the way you do the interview process, because you're not even looking first, okay, does this person come from a prestigious university? You're basically saying, can this person do the job? Do they have the skills to do the job? And then you sort of take them through. So like you said, so there's still sort of a chance for people that might not go through this route, the conventional structured university way, that there are lots of companies out there that actually do look at what are your skills, what can you actually bring to the table, but as opposed to saying, okay, you need to come from this university. So that's quite great. I'm aware that we have 10 minutes left.
Okay. I just want to mention something quickly. So, I mean, we spoke a lot about like, developing software. Now, as I mentioned, there's so many different roles within the IT industry. A lot of them that aren't actually, hands-on keyboard from a development point of view. And those roles are the quality assurance, your testers, and those kind of roles. We typically have people coming in. They can come in from a computer science background. They can come in from a information systems background. They can come in from just not even having a degree, just doing some. There are a lot of like testing or QA courses out there that people can do. It's not a 3-year program, but it is sufficient enough to show that you are skilled in that area. So QA is a good avenue as well. And then the next avenue is your business analysts. Those are the people that normally consult and interact with the clients and give the requirements to your developers and to your team. And people in those roles usually come from a information systems background. So they are avenues. And the cool part is, once you're kind of in the industry, if you show an aptitude to learn a particular skill, so say you started out in QA and now all of a sudden, you decide, I actually want to try software development out, and you now code in your spare time, you improve your skills, you build some applications, and you kind of upskill yourself. There can be opportunities if you speak to your company to do a shift. If you want to shift from QA to a software developer, software engineer, that is out there, but obviously it depends on your company, depends if they're hiring, depends on how skilled up you can actually get on your own.
And I can actually just add to that with QA testers. I actually recruited for that, and I can tell you that we couldn't find South African testers. We were struggling. So if you're looking for a field where where you're in demand and where there are few of them, I actually think that that's possibly one of the routes that you can take as well. And like I said, I think we've got about 8 minutes left now. So there's like 2 questions that also came from followers that I do want to sort of ask. And the one is Zakul. Okay, let's go back to the languages as well. So I know that you mentioned that there's different languages and that you need to learn a little, there's different types, front end, back end as well. So is there a specific language that's going to give you a competitive edge in the job industry?
Right now, I would say the most sought after skill, it's from, there's a company called OfferZen that they publish these polls and articles that have a whole lot of like statistics baked into them. And according to them, the most sought after job is actually JavaScript. If you've got JavaScript skills, that is the most sought after role available. After that, I would say, I think maybe a couple of marks. I know Java is also there, kind of on your top 5. C# is also on your top 5. Python is also there, but definitely JavaScript. If you learn that, you become skilled in that, there is definitely going to be a job opening for you.
Okay, cool. So those are the popular ones basically as well. And then the other question, and I think this is a cool sort of closing off question as well. So in your opinion, what does the future look like for software development?
The future is massive and open and endless.
Don't you know what the future is? Just okay.
The awesome part is, as more businesses are and more companies are realizing, what we can accomplish through software development. There's going to be more and more opportunities out there. As more people can identify, gaps that we have in our world, problems that we have in the world. Let's even think about it from, a problem today, COVID, right? Now, there were developers out there that, build all these systems that could aggregate information. tooling where we could track, if I got sick, who were the people that were in my vicinity that are, potentially affected. Now, those are all developers that saw, there's this massive problem that we're dealing with, and they came up with a solution. So that is the power that we have, being able to, creatively and, being able to solve the problem with your bare hands. Just by typing out some lines of code, you can take someone's problem and you can make it easy for them, right? And it can be something small, completely like, maybe there's a menial or a tedious task that you want to make someone's life easier, all the way to like a global scale or massive scale where, you decide to create the next Uber for whatever. You decide to create the next TikTok, for example, and this global scale. So massive scope for opportunity, massive chance for you to kind of go across the globe and use your skills kind of everywhere that you'd like.
That's awesome. That's great. So so there's just like it's endless. There's endless opportunity if you go into this space.
100%.
Okay. So you were saying?
No, that's it.
Okay. So I know we have like a few minutes left. Are there any sort of final thoughts you'd like to, say? Anything else you'd like to tell, especially people that are interested in this field or would like to sort of on the fence that would like to perhaps go into the field?
Yeah. There's no like, I'll learn, I'll start next month. I'll start, in a week's time, whatever like that. Today, if you want to learn, if you want to get into this industry, start today. Go YouTube, introduction to software development. Go YouTube, JavaScript tutorial, right? If you can make an improvement and if you can grow today, why wait? It's only going to be the benefit to you and your future and your career growth.
That's awesome advice. I think that's really cool. And basically, what you're also saying is that like the world is your oyster, and that there's nothing stopping you from actually learning this and actually creating new things.
Yep, I'm expecting a whole lot of people now to be building and publishing, releasing apps. I'll wait and see.
Yeah, well, you'll have mine next week, so don't worry.
Awesome.
Maybe I'll create a Lubna HR app, or maybe I can ask you to do that for me.
Who knows? We can do it. You can check it out.
Yeah, but Faraaz, thank you so much. Thanks so much for your time and for chatting to us here. I honestly learned so much, and I appreciate it. And it was very interesting, getting some insight into software development. And I'm sure that the people on the chat and also the people that wanted this recorded will be watching it later. There's so much that they can actually benefit from. So thank you so much, and good luck with the rest of your year and with the rest of your career. I'm sure you're going to be going places.
Thank you so much for having me. No, this is definitely fun to chat about the IT industry. And yeah, like I hope I hope the audience can pick up something, just at least like one thing from this interview process. But yeah, that's it's been fun. It's been cool.
Awesome. You keep well and take care. Thanks so much. Thanks everyone, and thank you so much for joining us as well. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to send them to me as well. I will be recording them. And I will be recording this, and I will be putting some of the answers into the post as well. So thank you so much. Have a lovely evening. Bye.